All right, back at you with another episode of Polly with Us. I'm Amin Shah, the Pod God, and I'm joined with a first-time guest to the channel. Introduce yourself to the folks.
Yo, what's good? It's Heem. You can follow me on Twitter, the real Heem D. But what's good? Thanks for having me on here, me. Appreciate it. I'm excited to talk with you about this stuff. So let's get to it.
Oh yeah, I appreciate you for coming out, but stay tuned because there's some things we have to speak about.
All
There's
right.
a lot of stuff we gotta get into. We have national anthem discussion, but we have Black history discussion. And as the title state, I have it Black Future because we do Black history year round over here. So, in that discussion, I kind of want to talk about. I think it's a little bit of echo. You hear a little bit of echo, real quick.
What's
Do you
that?
hear echo on your end?
I hear it now. Yeah.
Okay. There's a little bit of an echo. Let me see. Okay, I think it went away. I think we good.
No, I still hear it.
You still hear it?
Yeah. Is it me or is it? I hear it from you. I don't hear it from myself.
I hear it when I talk. Let's see.
Might be a little bit of feedback.
Bear with us for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Try to get it right for y'all. Do you still hear it?
Talk again.
Test, test, test. Do you still hear it?
It's small. It's not like super loud. It's kind of small, but it's there.
All right. So let's bear with me real quick. We'll get it right for y'all.
Do you have some earbuds or something?
Yeah, I got some headphones. I want to test. Yep, still hear it. Still hear it. Let me see. I think my good headphones. I don't think I have it on me, so just rock with us for a second. Hopefully, it's not too bad on y'all end. I do hear a little bit of an echo, but that's okay. We'll get it right for y'all. But yeah, like I was saying, we do Black History year round. So with that discussion, we're going to touch on Black history a little bit, but what we also going to touch on is Black future, some of the policies that we need to be thinking about going forward, and not just about politics because politics intertwine with everything we need to do as a community. Politics is just one aspect of it, and I'm also not a cat. You know, if y'all see that video too, that's hilarious. I'm not a cat, by the way. But first thing, let's talk about impeachment first. Let's get into that. Have you been keeping up with this trial?
So I haven't been keeping up to the day-to-day stuff with the Senate. And I'll tell you why. So, all right, we all about a month ago when this all happened, we were all like, "This is terrible and shocking, and somebody needs to be held to accountable, and you can't attack the nation like this and so forth." And we all, as a nation, well, as a nation of people that are sane-minded, we all kind of realized that, like, yeah, President 45 led to all this happening with his movements. First by uh, um, declaring himself the winner on election night, even though all the results weren't in, and then once they came in, said that this wasn't credible, and this wasn't a fair result, and saying that the votes in, for some reason, the Black communities in Detroit and in Atlanta and the Latino vote in Arizona didn't count because they didn't go in his favor. And he targeted them people specifically for the reason that he targets any minority in general, just because that's who he is. And so Philly as well. I'm sorry, Philly also.
Yep.
And so he tried to delegitimize the selection for 2 months straight. After that, he also went ahead and started calling like Secretary of States around the country, inviting electors to the White House, all to all to get them to change their minds and vote for him, even though they weren't bound to by the laws of their state. He wanted to do that, and then at the end, he's like, "Well, if this isn't going that way, let me go ahead and try to actually initiate that insurrection and get my middle class white supporters to get angry and join this." So I'm saying all of this, and also he was even and even forgetting that stuff, back in when the pandemic really hit and a lot of states were doing mail-in ballots, he was delegitimizing that as well, and saying that they don't count, and we need to slow down the postal service to make sure that the postal service fails, and so forth. So I piece all that together to say that the issue of inciting insurrection and riot at the Capitol on January 6th was a 6-7 month process that didn't just happen in one day. He and his supporters were doing this, and so I haven't been following day-to-day proceedings of the impeachment hearing because, first of all, none of that's really included in that. They only chose the September 6th speech as the thing that was the point to do stuff, and the charge isn't covering the work he did beforehand to legitimize that. On top of that, from what I read from the little blurbs you're hearing from different news outlets, if you're not going to call witnesses to the trial and you're falling back on well, we have 100 witnesses here in the Senate and we have 438 in the House, you're not really holding a legitimate trial. And if you're saying that expediency is what you want, and you want this to not be like an effort where you cover what actually happened and who, the what, the where, the when, and how. I remember the day of when all this happened. There was like a report. Somebody called the White House from the White House and said that the people will be leaving at this time. Like, I want to know who that person was. I think that's important. You know what I mean? I think that we need to know why the National Guard didn't come to DC. Why did they ignore the orders? Why did they ignore the request to come to DC to stop what's happening? We need to know why did the Capitol Police not enforce this the way they were. Why were they so flat-footed against this, considering that they announced it for a very long time that this was happening? Like, I remember seeing tweets from people before the event happened that said that, yeah, we're doing this on this date. So the question isn't necessarily about the speech yet inside of stuff. The questions that I want are, all right, who in the White House is actually backhandling this? Who in Congress is backhandling this? Get those people, subpoena those people, bring them on record and have them talk about what happened. You can't really have a fair and thorough trial, which this is, without an actual thorough investigation. And no one, Republicans obviously aren't interested in that. They just want to move on and try to pretend like this didn't happen. And what I'm also noticing as well is that Democrats aren't that interested either. They're interested in the political theater, right, and in the grandstanding stuff, but they're not interested in actually finding the truth as to why you're going to convict them. And I know that Republicans they'll say, well, Republicans are going to go ahead and vote to acquit anyway, and that's fair. Mm-hmm. But the case isn't for the Republicans. If you're saying this is a political process, you need to make the case to the American people and make them remember what happened and tie their vote of we're going to acquit him to the evidence that's been laid forth. And so, hearing, I feel bad for Dane Raskin. He's from Maryland, which I'm from, not too far from where I'm from and stuff. But hearing him cry about this isn't going to move people. What needs to move people, what will move people, is if you can actually have evidentiary stuff to show that what happened and show people under oath within the White House and so forth what were the links that brought this all together. I wouldn't mind hearing that lunatic Ali Alexander, whatever his name is, bring him up there and say, well, you said that you had communications with these Congress members. Talk about that. We'll screen your records as well. When they're not, if they don't do that, then I'm just kind of like, what are we doing here?
Right. And I want to jump in on a few things you said, because you said quite a bit there.
Sorry.
No. It's cool, because I was taking down notes. You hit on some key points that I want to expand on. Number one, Democrats are making mistakes by just doing the narrow impeachment. They did the same thing during the first impeachment trial. Mm-hmm. Remember, they focused strictly on the phone call. Mm-hmm. That's it. The phone call to Ukraine. That was the main thing they focused on. A little bit of Russia. Mm-hmm. They didn't bring up emoluments, which they had a better case for that than they did with Russia and even the Ukraine. Even though Ukraine was recorded, and that should have been enough, they should have brought up emoluments. They would have had a better chance. Mm-hmm. Now, They would have had a better chance, but the Republicans wasn't going to vote to impeach Trump, no matter what.
Right.
That just wasn't going to happen. Number two, that I want to touch on what you said. Yes, this was a buildup. This wasn't new. The Capitol attack. You already brought up a bunch of the incidents, a bunch of the things that he said, how he tried to undermine the votes, how he tried to discredit mail-in ballots from the beginning. He also remember in one of his speeches stated that, oh, after I win this election, maybe I do another 4 years since they investigated me the whole time during my first term. I really didn't have a first term. Maybe that's setting up to try to be a dictator. He was just throwing stuff against the wall, see if it stick. He left himself possible deniability. That's what he tried to do anyway. If it works, I'm down with it. If it don't work, I'll say that, oh, I didn't mean this. So that's what he tried to do. So they should bring up all of that stuff. You are right about that. Another issue, the Republicans. Democrats seem like they never learned their lesson, right? They seem like they might be learning a little bit now, but never trust Republicans. Don't trust McConnell. They will actually hope by Democrats that McConnell will vote for it and will inhibit the trial. Silly mistake. Silly mistake. Why would you trust McConnell? Ever. He's not the only one. Lindsey Graham, you remember during the 2016 election and the hearing for Mayor Garland, right? He said, oh, if this was the opposite way around, I would make the same decision with blocking the Supreme Court seat. Well, what do you know? Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away. Same situation. And what does he do? He does the exact opposite because he's a hypocrite. They don't care about hypocrisy. So it should be no surprise that a lot of the Senate Republicans that said that they would be open to this, once they get the political pressure, flip. Simple. That shouldn't be a surprise. Also, it seemed like they got away from focusing on some of the members of Congress that helped Trump in this path as well. Josh Hawley, prime example. Ted Cruz, prime example. Everybody's focusing on Taylor Greene right now. And this is like, people say this bad for the Republican Party, but it's actually good for specific members because she's so outrageous. And the media is focusing so much on her. They're giving people like Josh Hawley and Ted Cruz a pass. They're not talking about them no more. Because remember, Lindsey Graham too. Lindsey Graham actually called the Secretary of State in Georgia. They getting a complete pass with this. So why would they vote to impeach Trump when most of the Republican Party had a part on it? Now, there was some exceptions, but most of the Republicans stayed silent, even though they knew what Trump was saying was false. So that's my thoughts on it. Yes, Trump should be impeached. Is it? I have mixed feelings, and maybe you can jump in on this too about how impactful it would be. Yes, if he get convicted, they can make it so that he can't run for office again, which is big, and it might set a precedent. But the fact that Trump was able to do everything he was able to do while he was in office is a bigger problem and kind of exposes some of the flaws we have in our system. I think more so than just focusing on Trump, we have to focus on what is it in our system that allow for this to happen. To me, I always thought the executive branch have too much power, way too much power right now. You shouldn't be able to just bomb countries without the authority of Congress. Congress is supposed to be able to declare war, but they got it now with War Powers Act, where the president and the executive branch can just bomb a country by saying, oh, this is in our national security interest, and because there's no ground troops, that technically is not war. Where if you're blowing people up, to me, that's war. So it's a bunch of stuff right now that we need to focus on. But I know I went on a little tangent there. Go ahead, bro.
No, I agree with what you're saying. I think that to me, like, all right, you can't the biggest thing that was important, what you said out of that was that you wanted to find like what exposed these things, what caused this problem, right? And so you can't do that if you don't actually like thoroughly look into what led up to this. So if you don't like subpoena White House aides that probably know a lot more than what they're leading on, if you don't subpoena these people and bring them to the front and say like, yeah, I'm pleading the fifth, so I can't say this, or yeah, I'm scared of going to jail and lying to the U.S. Senate on a public platform. I'm going to tell you what happened and what the involvement people were and so forth. And you also got to remember that even though he was a Trump supporter, a police officer died there, and a lot of other police officers got injured. A lot of people got injured. These are things also that are criminal charges, and you can tie these things to the actions of the executive branch. And if you don't hold people accountable, this is going to happen again. You're going to have people come up again and think that this is okay to do this because they didn't see as many consequences from this as there should have been. And your other point too about the executive branch in general having too much power, yeah, for sure. Like ever since 9/11, I mean even before that, but 9/11 was like the turning point where the War Powers Act developed, like the Department of Homeland Security was formed after 9/11, the Patriot Acts, all these things, the FISA courts, all these things happened after 9/11 that has damn near made the president a monarch that can kind of do almost whatever they want. I mean, granted, like there's still some, Trump wasn't able to enact his entire whatever he thought was his agenda was. He wasn't able to, and Republicans weren't, and so much.
Yeah.
But like, um, but he was able to probably enrich his family for much more money than they had before, and enrich people around him for much more money than they had before, and create hell around the world through climate violations and all the bombing they've done. I mean, the Iran thing last year, for instance, was ridiculous, and that should never happen, but it happened.
Right, and that's another example. And
Mhm.
even beyond that, there was a question: can a sitting president be arrested?
Right, exactly,
So
exactly, yeah,
also, it was a question: can he pardon himself? So that
exactly,
means, can the president just straight up, let's just say he commits murder, right, to one of his family members,
right,
wife, children, and or something like that. God forbid. But any president, it don't have to be Trump, just the president in general,
mhm.
right? Could they pardon themselves? If you can't, if you can't arrest a sitting president, and he have the power to pardon himself, that means he can basically do whatever he wants to. I guess states can put him on charges, but they in DC, which DC is not a state as of now.
Yes, as I know.
There should, yeah, I know you in DC. It's a that too. We'll talk about that a little bit later too.
Mhm.
That's big right there. But yeah, so as you were saying, that the president is turned into a monarch. Basically, do whatever you want to. I mean, you can't do whatever you want to, but it's way too much power in the executive branch right now.
Yeah, I
Which is
agree.
the way it's supposed to either. The Senate is a big problem as well. So, like, at the same time, I don't know about all these executive orders, but right now, I think you have to do it because the Senate don't function like it should function either.
Mhm.
So my opinion is that nothing really gonna come out of this. I think that Trump is going to be found not guilty, even though the majority of senators will vote to impeach him. They're not going to be able to get the 17 Republicans they need to have a conviction.
Yeah, I agree, and that's why I can't watch this, because I don't see it's not even necessarily that they will or won't convict them. They're not going to make the case to the American people why he needs to be convicted, and they've laid out that they're not interested in that. And it goes back to like a lot of stuff that's wrong with the way our Congress currently runs and our elected officials currently act. You know, there's a lot of like we want to do this and this is important, but there isn't a lot of like actual doing. And you can say, well, the Republicans are a problem, and now people are going to get on me and say, well, why are you always blaming the Democrats? But I don't see the wielding of the power that you're supposed to have in these circumstances. So, you know, last year, for instance, or 2019, I'm sorry, when they set about to try to impeach Trump on the Ukrainian and stuff, they were like, we need voices in the room, we need to have witnesses, and it's happening too fast, and X, Y, and Z. And now they've turned around and done the exact same thing when they're in control. It doesn't make sense to me,
Right.
and that comes down to uh, granted, I understand in some capacity because they're like, well, we need to start trying to like get some stimulus stuff out there for this COVID relief bill, and I understand that completely, but you're missing an opportunity here to make the case to direct people why this person should be nowhere near any elected offices, and anyone associated with him should be near elected offices. What's going to happen is Americans have very short-term memories. 2022 is going to come around. They're going to forget everything that happened over the last 4 years and blame Democrats for not doing stuff, which is what always happens, and that's because they don't do anything. And so, you know, you have to do that, and there's no other circumstances in our society in this country where you're able to do the things that President Trump did and is able to walk off free unless you are the president of the United States. And that's now a very dangerous precedent that is being set. And you know, it's troubling to me. I don't know if people are that concerned about it. Unfortunately, I understand why, because of just the other stuff that's going on in this world with COVID and so many other things, the economic crisis that's also hit us because of COVID. But you know, you're making an easy path for the next person to come and say, "Well, I can do this, and I'm going to do this," and you're not going to stop me because they showed no appetite to actually stop them.
Right. And my homegirl, Miss Baba, was asking a question. I shouldn't answer your question until I get my shirt. You know, I gotta look fly. Yo, where my shirt at, Baba? You gotta send me that. But anyway, she asked about the two-party system. Why, basically, why the system is so bad. I would say because we have a winner takes all system. I think ranked choice voting will be much more effective, or the primary system, kind of like they have in UK or Canada, where you could have smaller parties, but they can unite with the main party to form a coalition government or majority. That's why they are able to do it. And with us, we just got that winner takes all system, which is, you know, it's not really what we need at this time.
Exactly.
All right. Anything else to add before we move on?
No, just if you are watching the impeachment hearings, good for you. I don't care. Like once I realized that they weren't really interested in doing anything serious or substantial, I just don't see the need for it, except for, I guess, people like going yes and slay and all this stuff to somebody saying something snappy. I guess, I don't know.
All right. So let's stay in the same arena right now. So you mentioned COVID, right? So what is your thoughts on the COVID bill? Because it's a lot of different things going on with COVID. They're going to attach a whole bunch of different stuff to this reconciliation bill. I hear baby bonds. Cory Booker and Anna Presley did a live last week discussing the importance of baby bonds. And me and the homie Fi, we also did a baby bonds breakdown last week. I'm going to chop that up and just put that on the channel so y'all can check that out. I'm going to have a policy playlist where, you know, you can check out some of this stuff in the playlist. So you're talking about baby bonds. We're talking about legalizing marijuana. But on that, I don't know if they're going to attach that to reconciliation or they're trying to do that solo bill. Minimum wage, $15 minimum wage. So it's a bunch of different things trying to be attached to reconciliation with the COVID relief bill. Been going back and forth with the direct checks and how much is going to be means tested. So it's just been a lot going on. The child poverty things with checks per month. If you have child, a bunch of different proposals with this. What's your whole thoughts on this?
So I think it's good that even though 1.9 trillion, I know it sounds crazy, isn't really enough considering the economic. We're in the middle of a global depression, which nobody wants to admit. It's a depression. The amount of jobs that were lost was tragic, and as usual, we wait the last minute to get these things done because I think next month is when unemployment runs out for people, and we have millions of people that are unemployed, either lost jobs last year or are just out the system, and so we need to do something for them really fast. So, I think that we need to do more, obviously, but I know that I'm also aware of the circumstances that people see a bigger number and they hit the big Stevie Harvey eyes. We're like, oh no, this is too much. And so yeah, I think 1.9 it could be more, but it is what it is. But in terms of the particulars of the bill, I think they're walking back the $15 minimum wage thing, which is I always think is a mistake. Just because it's phased in over five. First of all, it's $15 isn't really enough. It's not the minimum wage anymore. That was 10 years ago when they were advocating for that, and it probably should be a lot more than that now. But it's phased over 4 years. So if your business isn't able to adjust to that over the next 4 years, then you probably shouldn't have a business. I'm just being a reality with you. Seattle and New York have done it. There have been some setbacks, but people are going to eat out in restaurants. People are going to do stuff because they want to be out and seeing them. And there wasn't as much loss as people were fearing with these things. So that's very important. The baby bombs discussion, I think, is critical because that's a way to really establish some type of wealth for people as they get older. We have a country that frankly doesn't care about child poverty. And this is a great step to try to rectify that, especially with regards to on the issues of race and class. Black kids, Hispanic kids, Latino kids, and so forth don't get that. Native American kids don't get that.
Can I ask you a quick question on that?
Sure.
I'll ask you. Now, baby bonds is a great idea, and why do you think that more progressives is not talking about baby bonds?
I don't know if I'm one of those. Probably I'm getting to learn more about this as I get older, but I don't think progressives understand economics that well. I know that sounds crazy, but I don't think we do, and that's probably because a lot of them may not come from the backgrounds of people like me that didn't grow up with a lot of money, and so you start saying, okay, this would be nice to have, that'd be nice to have, and so forth. So that's one thing. The other thing is, I know you mentioned Cory Booker, and listen to your last episode with File about that and how he would always try to posit it as the opposite of reparations, which it shouldn't be. But I also don't know if he was that serious about it. I know he talks about it, but I don't know if he was that serious about it because it wasn't something that he was really advocating for that much. Because when I first heard it, I was like, oh, this is kind of a dope idea. I like that idea. This is good to make sure that kids have this much money in their accounts as they hit the ages of 18, so they can either go to college and not have to worry about debt, or have a nice nest egg to use this money for something within their lives, either buy a home or something that's positive. So he didn't really advocate it for that much for, which is very weird to me because I think that this would have been a thing that people would have been like, okay, this is kind of an important policy that you may not win the election yourself, but because people will think so much about it, they might bring it within their platform, like UBI of Andrew Yang when he was talking about it all the time. It stayed in the consciousness of people, and it's something that's now a serious talking point. And even now with these stimulus checks, they are a kind of a trial run for UBI. And so and even unemployment stuff as well. So I don't know. I think that a lot of progressives don't think about it, but because it's not something that a lot of us unfortunately can relate to because they haven't grown up in a situation that would see that as a critical and a necessary thing to help children advance. So it's I like the idea a lot. I think it's a great and very progressive idea.
Like I said, I think it might have gotten more traction if it wasn't Cory Booker, because a lot of professors just don't like him. So I think that's one of the reasons. Like I said this last week, I think if Bernie Sanders were to propose it, they would be all over it. Or even Elizabeth Warren, even though some of them didn't jump off of her bandwagon. I think, and also because, like I said, sometimes certain progressives don't want to focus on race; they want to focus strictly on class. And although baby bonds is for everybody, and poor white people will be helped too,
for sure,
is really designed to help shrink the racial wealth gap as well. And I think that's one of the reasons why it is not picking up. Well, it's picking up steam now. And the funny thing is, Cory Booker is talking about baby bonds more now than he did when he ran for president.
Right.
Actually, I don't even mind too much because
for sure, yeah, I agree. I'm not a fan of Cory Booker myself, but this is an important policy that would definitely help alleviate the racial wealth gap that's happened in this country. So talk about it more, Cory Booker, please.
It's funny. I'm becoming to kind of respect Cory Booker because when I first heard about him, I heard about him in the 2000s. He was the mayor of Newark, and people say he had a bright political future. I don't live in the city, so I was just like, okay, cool. A brother doing his thing. Maybe he can go some places. And then when he won the Senate seat, I was happy. But then when he said that the thing about the Obama campaign and Bain Capital, how they shouldn't criticize venture capitalism during the middle of the election, I was like, what is you doing? Then I come to find out, okay, you got a lot of them.
Right.
Okay. So I was kind of off Cory Booker since then, and I didn't like his presidential campaign at all. I thought he did a lot of cliches, a lot of platitudes, but
lately, the mix. No, the mix.
That work. He introduced the Justice for Black Farmers bill, which is critically important. That, along with baby bonds, those two big policies that help shrink the racial wealth gap. Because the Justice for Black Farmers bill, they actually basically giving away acres to Black farmers, which Black farmers been discriminated against dramatically throughout history. So that is actually real tangible stuff. That will help a lot of rural Black people right there, the Black Farmers bill. So I applaud him for that.
Yeah.
You remember he did introduce the First Step Act too. He was
That's right.
Even though it's not exactly what we need, but it was a decent first step. So he also was part of the group that introduced and legalizing marijuana in the Senate. It's him, Schumer, and I forgot the other senator who introduced him, but I know it's Cory Booker and Chuck Schumer.
Okay.
Introducing the bill to legalize marijuana in the U.S. Senate, and you already know it's passing the House. So lately, he's been putting in some work. He's
trying. I mean, listen, you work within the confines of the Senate, so he's trying to do stuff. I still don't like how beholden he is to corporate interests, but
I don't trust him at all.
Yeah, you shouldn't trust him, but I totally he's trying to do stuff, and I don't have a problem with that. But he wants to make his legacy doing really impactful things in the Senate. Then man, please do that, and that's cool. I still have bad feelings about him, but that could always change. But
if he get baby bonds in there, if he get the Justice for Black Farmers bill, he will actually be one of the best senators in the U.S. because most of these senators don't do that.
Sure, they are
after them. So credit where credit is due, man. I'm about for me, it's just about the product we produce. I disagree with stuff you do in the past, even if I don't fully trust you on other issues, do something that I feel like could tangibly help out people, I'm all for you, regardless.
Facts.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, the actual relief bill as well. So you have those initiatives. You also have excuse me. Another important thing is talking about unemployment and giving more states money to clean their unemployment systems. We saw last year that you read articles about different states and how people were applying for unemployment, either the site would crash or they would be notified for 6 to 8 weeks that they were getting unemployment and wouldn't receive the checks until many months later. These are things that are critical, and if we can get something in there to first of all, also aid states, because a lot of states and local municipalities really need money because they have to have a balanced budget, and they can't print money, and they're going to, a lot of them are going to be running at a huge deficit unless Congress steps up and helps them. And so these are important things that were neglected in the last couple of stimulus bills because of just America. but yeah, these are things that are going to be really critical to help people recover going forward. But I wonder if this is going to is just one step, and probably we'll need several other stimulus bills as this depression continues onward. So I don't know. We'll see.
I definitely think so. There's a few things again that you touched upon that I want to expand on. The money to state and local governments is critically important. As you said, states can't run a deficit because they can't print money. Like the federal government had the Federal Reserve, so federal government can run a deficit. It doesn't even make that much of a difference in the federal government, to be honest. We've been running a deficit for most of the history, most of our history.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's whatever with that. But when it comes to the state, they can't do that. So what most states going to cut? We've seen it right here in New York State. Everybody loves Cuomo now for whatever reason, but yeah, everybody loves Cuomo now for whatever reason. But a quiet story is that he been cutting Medicaid. And when states run a deficit, that's the first thing they go to. They go to Medicaid, and a lot of people depend on Medicaid. And people have the wrong idea about it. Some people that have Medicaid actually do work. Like some don't, but some do. It's just you have to be under, is it 400% the poverty line?
I'm not even 100% sure. I know when I was a kid, we were on Medicaid. So I totally get it, man. Like, my mom worked and we were on Medicaid. And so, people are actually out here doing stuff, and they usually are like the quote unquote essential workers that are working in grocery stores or working in restaurants, doing things like that, while, pretty much being the working poor. So I hear you.
Yeah. So, and beyond that, even if somebody isn't working, they still should be
right.
Because if they go to the emergency room, we're going to pay for it anyway. And it adds more cost to the overall system. So they need to be covered. So that's the first thing that goes. That goes to, we can get deeper into that later with universal health care. But, the current system we have, that's what state's going to go to. And that's going to hurt a lot of people. That affects school budgets. It affects firefighters, police officers. I know some people are like, police officers, that might not be too bad of a thing for some people, but yeah, it hurts in a lot of different ways. So state and local governments definitely need that aid in this COVID relief bill.
Right.
Also, it's been a roller coaster ride with the means testing. It seemed like Biden and the Democrats was going cave, but now the latest I'm hearing, of course, we got to see the final bill. The latest I'm hearing is they're going to keep the means testing the same at the $75,000 rate and $150,000 per family. That's the latest I heard.
Can I ask about that? All right.
Sure.
I don't understand the means testing. I don't understand it. I don't understand why they were trying to pare it back, and I don't understand why like the argument is, well, rich people don't need the $2,000. Yeah, they don't. Give it to them anyway. Let them have it. They pay taxes. Let them have it. You can correct it on the back end so that they aren't able to do anything with it. But Elon Musk can get $2,000. Who cares? Like, why? I'm not offended by that. And I don't think most people are. I mean, if you give free money to Elon Musk for a million other things anyway, like I don't think $2,000 is gonna like kill anybody. So I say that because living in DC or living like in an East Coast city or West Coast city or living in a city that's like, or Chicago, for instance, that's just pretty much any city that has like a high cost of living. Somebody making $74,999 isn't the same as somebody making $74,999 living in Alaska or living in Hawaii or living in Alabama or wherever. And so it doesn't make sense to me to limit that because you're by saying the people that are rich, because it's already kind of disparate anyway, depending on where you are. All you're doing is kind of like creating resentment from people for some reason that I don't understand. If somebody who's making $8,000 a year living in San Francisco, they probably need the $2,000 too. It just doesn't make sense to me why. I don't know if you feel that way or not, but it doesn't make sense to me why they would even limit that to begin with. I'm of the mind of just giving out to everybody, letting people have that money to do stuff with.
You lactate you what they call it, lactate liberal. You say that you liberal. I'm
a Cadillac liberal or something, a limousine liberal.
I'm from blue collar Rust Belt.
Okay, yeah.
No, I'm joking. I agree with you 100%. We was talking about this. I think we might me and Bob might have hit on this last week. No, I completely agree with you for a few different reasons. Number one, like you said, you can tax it back on the back end. Yes, I do agree that somebody make it. Biden keeps saying, and Democrats keep saying $300,000. Yes, or something like that. Maybe they don't need it. Okay, tax it back on the back end.
Yeah.
Just make it simple. That way they really not getting it. It's just like a quick little loan.
Mm-hmm.
We'll tax it. Fine. And you are 100% correct with cost of living. New York City, California, DC is extremely, extremely expensive.
Right.
So $100,000 in New York City is not $100,000 in the middle of Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing. But you got to remember, in the Senate, each state has 2 Senate representatives, right? It doesn't go based on population. It goes back to Jersey and the Virginia plan, right? The bigger states versus the small states, and
right.
And the Virginia's plan was the bigger states, which is basically became the House of Representatives. New Jersey plan, the smaller states, basically became the Senate. So you have an over-representation of smaller rural states. And in those states, the cost of living is not like it is in California, it's not like it is in New York. And DC doesn't even have a representative that can actually do an official vote. They just got somebody that can be there.
Right.
So that's the problem right there. And that goes with the minimum wage as well. $15 in New York is not the same as $15 in Idaho, which is not the same as $15 in California.
Right.
Different areas, the cost of living is extremely different. And the other thing is, I know this is not just about this issue, but in general, I feel like people will rather suffer than to see somebody else progress, which is crazy. Like that old crab in the bucket saying,
crab in the barrel, yeah.
Yeah. The older I get, the more true it becomes. People are so worried about another group getting something that they won't even take something that can help out their specific situation. And I keep seeing that over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes with we've been saying for years a lot of these poorer Republican voters are voting against their interests.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not just them. It's certain groups of Democrats, you see that too.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, definitely.
It's just something, you don't know that human nature.
Yeah.
Or I don't know. Can that be worked on? Is that just human nature? I'm not sure.
That's more. I mean, I don't know. I think that it comes down to, we look down on who's right below us, and we look up at who's right above us, and while not looking at the top, you know what I mean? And so, we don't want to be who's below us. We aspire to be who's right above us, and we can't even like compute what's going on like at the top level and stuff. And so we're always like competing with just what's in front of us, what's below us, and what's above us. That's it. That's all we see. And because of that, we tend to do stuff that's against our own interests. I don't know if that's human nature. I don't know if it's capitalism, and the way capitalism runs in this country, especially. But yeah, Democrats definitely advocate for things against their own interests, and we do that a lot. I mean, we were talking about that earlier with the baby bonds. Like, why isn't like progressives like taking this up more? Because it's just for some reason they can't see themselves. They can't see how they benefit from getting their children this benefit in their lives. It's crazy to me. It doesn't make sense to me. I'm more of a humanist. I try to think that even though I come across as cynical sometimes, I'm really not. Like, I think that we should try to help out even those that are against us. You should try to help them out as well, because they're human beings. Even if they don't know what's good for them, what's good for them. Help give them what's good for them. That's just the way I always think. And so yeah, I don't understand like the contention towards giving $2,000 to people. First of all, they misled us with $2,000, because remember, in Georgia they were having a campaign. They were saying you'll get $2,000 tomorrow, and then Biden has this speech like, well, it's $1,400, and then they really were trying to like push to in a roundabout way lied to what they were promising in the Georgia.
It's a lie.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, in a roundabout, it was a lie. First of all, for saying $2,000, and then they were going to lie again by saying, "Well, we should make it $50,000 for people."
Right.
It's a cutoff point. That's going to be like the actual lie in itself. I don't understand it. I'll never understand it. But that's the unfortunate reality you are in this country. But it doesn't make sense to me whatsoever.
It is a bias, right? Like, people say that the media is biased. I think they bias towards establishment, period. People they love people like Mitt Romney. They love those types too, along with more mainstream Democrats as well. But real progressive ideas, real ideas that will help, I feel like, Black people, that's not symbolism. A lot of times they go against that.
Oh yeah.
So, but they love somebody like Biden, right? Like, Biden is a lie. And again, I never liked Biden, but I did vote for him because he's much better than Trump.
Yeah, for sure.
It's fine print. It's real. It's like a used car salesman. That was some real slick stuff.
It was very slick. It was very slick, right? Yeah, like you
14,000. I mean, not 14,000. I wish
2,000.
2,000. He said 2,000. He didn't say, okay, since they're going past the $600, 1,400. No, but we letting them get away with that.
Of course, always.
I'm like, okay, whatever. Especially if they put in this child tax credit, which I actually think is excellent.
I agree with that.
I don't know if you have kids or not, but
not yet.
Yeah, I'm about to have one on the way any second now.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And just like, because I'm about to have a kid, I'm starting to look into childcare. Oh man,
yeah,
it's crazy expensive, right?
Yeah.
And even though like $350 a month, or even the $250 a month if you got a kid older than that is won't pay for your child care completely or even come close. It helps.
Mm-hmm.
Helps. And I definitely like you not waiting to the end of the year if you giving it per month.
Right.
And I think that makes it easier to get to a UBI. I would prefer just a straight up UBI, to be honest. I think a UBI would be better, but I'll take this though.
Mm-hmm.
I will take this.
And you can feel it too. Like the Democrats really need to advocate for stuff that people can touch and feel. You know, I know people don't want to like admit this, but like you know, when Trump got more votes last year, for instance, right? And I think a lot of that's because some people were just like, well, he gave me $1,200, so I'm going to vote for him because he signed his name on a check and sent a letter out, you know, expressing how he feels sympathetic towards you. I think everybody that was able to get that got that letter, and so it didn't affect people like me, but some people that aren't that into it were like, yeah, I'm voting for this guy. I gave him $1,200. These things are things that when you can tangibly feel something, a change, that really makes an impact. So something like a child care credit, you can tangibly feel that every month. That's going to make an impact. And I think that if Democrats want to be successful, they need to start doing more stuff like that and less of the slick stuff and less of the wonky stuff that you know people can't feel or don't understand. You know,
Right.
It's a much smarter policy, and I think that they just need to do more of that. So yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, I love that part. They actually, the congressional Democrats actually have been more progressive than I anticipated.
Yeah, I agree.
Which is a surprise. I'll take it. Still not going nowhere far enough, but like,
Yeah,
I'll take it for now, especially considering we have Biden. Is like you almost got great at the scale because he's, yeah. I'm gonna get off of that. I'm gonna do Biden anyway.
I give him, you know what though, I give him credit because like even though I feel like a lot of the stuff that some of the stuff I it's more of like some I think of race and class instead of some people that just think of race or class only. I try to see things under both lenses, and so some of the stuff he's doing, I'm like, all right, you are actually like a lot more progressive than definitely Obama, for instance. Like I don't think Obama was anywhere near like this at all, and maybe I think I always kind of felt like Biden was kind of progressive in some instances. You don't think so?
Not at all.
During this administration? I'm talking about during now, like at this moment.
Well, I think it's easier to do it now.
Right.
And you remember Biden was Obama vice president. He gave him a lot of the conservative advice he was doing too.
That's true. I would never deny that.
Yeah. So, and he got a lot to make up with. The architect of the crime bill, the 94 crime bill, tried to do it in 92 as well. People forget about that.
The crack laws were in 88. You was pushing that in 80s. Yeah, I remember all that.
He did that. He pushed Reagan in with the tough on drug legislation. He did the bankruptcy bill. He voted for the war in Iraq. I mean,
stuff. Yeah, I know.
Defending the crime bill up to a few years ago. Like Biden history is bad.
So I'm not disagreeing with anything you said. I think what I was getting at was more so that his start to his presidency, his administration is probably laying the ground for being a little bit more progressive than Obama's presidency was. Biden was
I'm not sure about that either though, because the start of Obama presidency, it was still a lot of hope. What was the first? Was the Liddy Ledbetter Act was the first thing he signed?
Equal pay, yeah.
Then it was the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, the stimulus bill,
which was way too low. It was a problem, and that damages like presidency for good pretty much because it was way too low.
Way too low.
Yeah,
and he did Biden did learn from that, but he was part of that strategy to be.
Yeah, I agree.
So he also with if you care about like taxes too, he was part of the design to make most of the Bush tax cuts permanent as well. He negotiated with McConnell.
Sure.
That like Biden got a lot to make up for.
And he tried to like get rid of Social Security. You remember this as well.
He did. And
the reason why it's not gone is because Republicans were like, no, we want more.
Right.
Which is crazy.
What you think about him meeting with Ice Cube, or apparently going to meet with Ice Cube.
I don't care about that stuff, man. Like I swear, I mean, I don't. Ice Cube. I mean, I don't have a problem with Ice Cube doing this stuff. Like I know people, some of the like the more snooty black people are upset about it because they can't get into the room, I guess, themselves. And then and then there are those that are like trying to celebrate it as like a grand achievement. I don't care because Ice Cube he doesn't know anything about this stuff. Like it's not an insult. He just doesn't. This isn't his lane. Like you've never really heard Ice Cube talk about these things before, and so I don't think he's done the research. And I know it feels like a lot of like window dressing and stuff instead of anything that's going to be actual like substantial. So if they want to meet, they can meet. I don't really care. I just don't care. It doesn't offend me.
I slightly disagree because if you looked at his plan, there was some stuff on there that I actually like. Now it depends on who's going to be with Ice Cube when he meets. Do I want Ice Cube by himself? No, I don't. But Ice Cube said that he didn't design the plan by himself. Like, so he has some input. The one thing that I do want Ice Cube to push for that was in his plan, or the plan him and his team came up with, was qualified immunity when it comes to policing. That is big, and that was in there. So if he keeps it on that, and also Biden did during his campaign promise money to the Small Business Administration to help businesses as well. I do want that in there. So it is certain things that was in his plan and certain things that Biden have promised that if they meet, I think could be positive. I'm not looking at Ice Cube as like a negotiator or something.
Right.
But I think with the Biden team, what they learned from is that some Black people that might not be in politics or have a jaded view of politics, which who can blame them? Stuff like Trump pardoning Kodak Black or
Lil Wayne,
pardoning Lil Wayne, pardoning, giving a pardon to Harry O, and those types of on the surface. It's funny, but like I actually didn't hear people say, "Oh, that was some real ish,"
Right.
That was some G stuff right there, So I'd actually heard like people say that, especially with the Kodak pardon. So I don't know if they just looking at it like that. Okay, we need to meet with Ice Cube, and Ice Cube was critical of them. Let's show that okay, we are willing to meet. But bottom line, I want to see the policies. Are you going to push HR 40? Is that going to get signed? Right. Are you going to support the baby bonds program? What's going on with the Small Business Administration and getting money to Black banks and Black businesses? And that's the type of stuff I'm looking at.
So I'm with you on all that. I think the issue that I have with like the Ice Cube, like people like Ice Cube stepping up doing this, is that there have been activists that have been proposing those things for a very, very long time. Like qualified immunity has been around for forever. Right. You know what I mean? And so I'm good that he's like the forefront of that. I don't want him to be the credit for that, I guess is my issue. Like I've seen this stuff has been talked about for years. Everything that I read in this platinum plan, I'm like, well, this has been in the ether for a while. And definitely like exploded last year when all the uprisings happened around the country. And I feel like that's when Ice Cube, for some reason, his antennas like turned on. And granted, I'm happy that he's connected with people that were there advocating for these things to try to create a plan out of this. I don't like that he's like the quote unquote face of it. That's the issue I have, and that's the thing that I'll always push back against. I think in this country, we were talking earlier about a monarchy. This country loves to put power on personalities and on one figure to move things, and that should never be the case. Like Ice Cube shouldn't be the reason why we get rid of qualified immunity and small businesses are now able to get loans and stuff. It wasn't just him. It was others that were doing stuff. And I know that sounds weird, but I don't like that. That's the thing I kind of like push back against always when I see some of the stuff. So that's why I'm always like, I'm happy that he's in the room and he's advocating for these things that a lot of activists have pushed for. I just don't like that. I don't like that it's not Ice Cube and it's just Ice Cube. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, he's going to get the credit. I feel you that the activists that have been doing the groundwork for decades should be the ones getting the credit, but you know how that goes.
Yeah.
For me, the bottom line is, do we get the policies we need? That's all I care about right now. And then that's just where I'm at with like almost everything. Like just a little bit of different subject, but like with Harriet Tubman on the 20, cool. I love Harriet Tubman, legend. They botched that movie. But
I haven't seen
it. Harriet Tubman, lover, icon, $20 bill, sure, I can afford it. But what about
Have you seen the Good Lord Bird?
Huh?
You seen the Good Lord Bird? That TV show?
Man, I tried to watch the first episode. I had to turn that off.
Man, it's good. I promise you, it's good. I know it seems weird because he's wearing the dress, but it's a good show.
Yeah.
But they featured Harriet Tubman on the show, and she was like, they called her a general. You know what I mean? And like when they were talking about her, it was with such like reverence and like this is like a powerful person, even though she's like 4'11". You know what I mean? So like it was a really good portrayal of her. I haven't seen the movie, so I can't comment on that, but it was a really good portrayal of her.
Movie. But the Good Lord Bird, right? And I like John Brown.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like was he a perfect individual? Of course, nobody.
No, he's crazy. That shit crazy.
You know, you say tomato, I say tomato. I mess with John Brown.
Right.
That's the homie. Well, he might have been a little of a religious fanatic.
He was crazy.
He might have been a fundamentalist.
But people being crazy sometimes can lead to good things, and he had you know, he was a good he was right. That's the only thing you can kind of say about him.
Yeah, you know, if you were a white man during that time advocating slavery and willing to kill people over it, people would call you crazy. So
I hear you, but that wasn't it.
I know he was a little fundamentalist with his religious beliefs. And maybe he got his way. Maybe he would have been a religious dictator. But hey, you got to pick your poison sometimes. And, I feel like he was no more crazier than Andrew Jackson.
Yeah, man, Jackson was crazy and dangerous. Like dangerous in the sense of like he was trying to kill Native Americans and everybody else.
That's my problem, though. Like, why is John Brown? I'm not talking about you specifically, but just the general perception. Why is John Brown considered crazy, but Andrew Jackson is considered sane and normal?
Oh, he won.
The presidents that did mass genocide, considered normal. Like that's. I guess
John Brown lost. That's why he wasn't considered. Yeah, it's
fair point. All right. Now, what do you think about this whole NBA thing in the national anthem with Mark Cuban?
Okay.
Stating that they no longer gonna play the national anthem in the Mavs games.
Well, they rescinded it now. NBA was like, everybody's playing national anthem at our games. I don't know what Mark Cuban was talking about, but they put a statement out today saying that everybody plays national anthem. It shows you how stupid it is to play this before domestic sporting events. The fact that they were doing it since the preseason and it's January and nobody noticed it or cared. It shows you how like super inconsequential it really is, but how people need this to for whatever reason to feel good. I know like the history behind it. It wasn't even a thing until like the I think it was a World Series in the 50s. I can't remember what year it was when they first started doing that. So it wasn't even like a real thing in American sports tradition until that point. So I don't know. I've never understood the need to play the national anthem before the sporting event, especially a domestic sporting event. Nowhere else in the world does that. Like I watch soccer, and you watch English Premier League matches or matches in Italy or matches in Mexico and Brazil, no one's doing national anthem for domestic matches, even when it's like Champions League or intercontinental matches. No one's playing national anthem. They don't do it for basketball in Europe or South America or Asia. They don't do it for any rugby, any type of domestic sporting event amongst teams that are our clubs essentially. They don't do this. It's only America, and it's bizarre, and it doesn't make any sense at all why we do this, because the Dallas Mavericks versus the Los Angeles Lakers on a Wednesday night in the middle of January doesn't call for us to like hear the national anthem, in my opinion. It's always been kind of weird, and it goes back to that ridiculous, over patriotic standpoint that we have in this country, that it leads to stuff like what happened on January 6th, where people, are so beholden to the traditions of false nationalism that they don't understand, what the values and the laws of this country actually are, or they forget it. It's such an easy thing to distract people with, and for such a long time, people have been distracted by that. I don't know how you feel about it, but I never ever understand the need to do that. When I go to sporting events around here, like I usually like be sitting down or doing everything but like standing for or acknowledging it, because I just don't really care. Like I didn't come here to play just to the flag. I came here to watch Brad Bill try to score some points. That's what I care about. I don't care about all this other stuff, and I don't think most people really do either. But it's just really a weird thing. So I'm not a big Mark Cuban fan, but I just thought it was interesting that he was the one doing that. And if you've ever been to Dallas, Dallas is a very like conservative area. Like it's like white bread America. You know what I mean? Like it's like the creme of that. Like everything that TV show Dallas in the 80s, that's like, it's not like that obviously, but it's like very like white cornbread, like all this stuff, like very conservative area.
Yeah.
And so for him to do it there, it was kind of like remarkable. And the NBA's quick turnaround kind of lets me know, like, what I've always felt about the NBA is that it's not really like the most like hashtag woke league that they try to put themselves as. It's never been that. It's always been the business, and they jump on these things because they recognize the demographics of their players, but it's never been about that at all. I mean, even last year when the players effectively had a work stoppage, they had a strike because of what happened to Jacob Blake. The reactions to that were not like from the league itself, wasn't like what I would deem a league that was like really concerned about labor of its players. Yeah, it didn't surprise me that they reacted that way. I'm stunned that Mark Cuban did that, but it doesn't surprise me that they acted that way. So,
well, a few things. Well, when you go to the games, you should sit in shame if you're a Wizards fan. That's not the way.
I got that. I can't. I mean, I don't know why I support the same. I tell people if they move to Seattle tomorrow, I would be so happy. Would smile.
That's first of all. I just want to let you know you should be ashamed of yourself for being a Wizards fan.
What team?
I'm joking. I'm a Buffalo Bills fan, even though we had a good year this year.
Basketball team?
Huh?
Basketball team?
I like players. Since we don't have an NBA team here, I'm really, I'm a LeBron. I'm
right. Okay.
I'm not Stan. I stand no man.
Good.
But, yeah, no man at all. But I just like interesting matchups. So I like Bron. I like KD. I like Bradley Beal. I like Westbrook, man. But like the way the tail end of his career is going,
it's sad.
It's sad because he tries so hard. Man. Like he give it his all the time. But yeah, so you and Fi both.
We're both fans of their home teams.
But like I said, I'm a Bills fan, and like we had a good year, but I can't really be talking about anything, to be honest. Like we sucked for like 20 years, so like until recently, and then we got trashed in the AFC Championship game, which was
Yeah, I
sad.
got a future, man. Y'all should be good with that.
Yeah, and I kind of don't like you right now because now I am thinking about your football team beat us in the Super Bowl too in '92. Yeah, I didn't forget.
That's
I ain't,
like the greatest. I was a kid when they won that game. I remember my dad took me to some watch party and stuff, and I was like, this is how it's gonna be. And then I barely associate with the team now. That's how like sad it is for for me as a fan of that team.
and then this dude right here, you call yourself a progressive. I just told you was the pain I experienced as a Bill fan, and then you elaborate
Listen,
on us losing the Super Bowl game.
this country is a
Like, that's
capitalist
no
country.
progressive right
So
here.
this country's capitalist, and so somebody has to hurt for others to feel good.
Oh, okay. We got way off topic here. Let's bring it back now. I don't want to talk about this no more. So I'm going to bring it back to the main issue. All right. So number one, I actually think that Adam Silver came out and said that teams don't have to play the anthem if they don't want to. I think it's each.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought you had a statement saying that they had to. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I don't think they have to. And as far as Mark Cuban is concerned, I'm not a big Mark Cuban fan. The whole hoodie comment he made about young black men, I wasn't feeling that at all. So I always looked at it as sentiment. I don't think he did this as any type of political statement. I just think he did this. I think it's just easier. So this way he doesn't have to run the risk of anybody protesting during the national anthem ever. So that alleviates that problem right then and there. And again, like you said, especially in the NFL, like playing a national anthem was fairly recent. It was part of an ad campaign.
That's right, yeah.
So
that was like in like the early 2000s. I think when Tag League was commissioners when they first started doing that. Yeah, you're right.
Yep. And as far as me, I was actually in the military. Like I spent 6 years in the Air Force, and just with the whole protest kicked off, and people was talking about Kaepernick and how he was anti-American and he was anti-veteran. So I was like, have you spoke to black veterans? Because you remember it was a whole thing that popped off, black veterans or veterans for Kaepernick. Like a lot of black veterans supported what he was doing. And so you should divide them. Like don't like so Kaepernick in the long run have been proven right.
Yep.
You know, and this whole it's crazy that it took this George Floyd situation for the stragglers to say, okay, maybe he has a point, but he still don't have an NFL job. But yet Nathan Peterman got re-signed to the Raiders. We know what that's about.
Yeah.
So the whole thing, I don't care if they play national anthem. I don't care if they don't play. To me, it never made a bit of difference. I don't care if you sit for the anthem. I don't care if you stand for the anthem. I don't care if you take off your hat. I don't care if you wear your hat. I don't care if you put your hand over your heart. I don't care if you do. I really don't give up.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. I'm the same way. This is all your personal thing. First of all, I want to say thank you for your service. First of all, for serving. I always say that. All right, so my wife is in the is a reservist in the Army, and so we joke about that all the time. And she's like, I didn't. She's like, I didn't do anything. Like I'm a reservist. Like, I don't go anywhere. And I kind of like feel away about it. I'm like, I hear you. So I joke about that with her and stuff. But seriously, like I always like it's important to say thank you for even doing that. Like I say thank you because I couldn't do that. I couldn't go into boot camp and all that stuff. It's intense.
I went in when I was 18.
Still, man.
Back then. Now I'm too old.
Yeah.
Like I ain't trying to hear nothing. Like you talking. Like at 18, I was like, I get some money. I grow up with money.
Right.
I was like, I get what? Oh, y'all signed. Oh, they said you get a bonus. Oh, this is. I gotta tell some stories eventually too. I can get into that real quick. A quick one is that I had a 4-year contract. They got me with 6 years because I was well, actually, when I first was recruited, I was 17. I wasn't even 18 yet.
Mm-hmm.
I went when I was 18, but they was like, "Oh, you signed up for 2 more years for 6 years. We give you $4,000, right?"
Mm-hmm.
And like, I remember, I don't have, I'm not used to money. 17, I was in the hood. I was like, $4,000. That sounds like a ton of money back then.
Right.
So I did it, right? Being young and stupid. Turns out I didn't even know the money was taxed. I was like, but this is the government. How is we getting the money for the federal government? Why are they taxed there? Turned out to be 2,800. And like that's
That's
sour.
crazy.
That I was already sour from my military experience from the beginning from that.
That's crazy.
I felt like they got me. I was like, oh, I got God. I was mad. But that's a whole different story. But anyway, yeah, I really don't care either way.
I feel you. Yeah, I don't care if you do stuff. I just I don't care if you do it either. I just don't like that it's such a there's a militancy towards that. That's the issue that I have because if we always talk about you have the right to do this and this free will and First Amendment, but you have to honor the flag and X, Y, and Z. And I was like, wait a minute, that these things don't josh. So I if teams want to play it, it's whatever. I tend to like check out when that stuff happens anyway. That's somebody thinks well. Somebody thinking well, I'm like, oh snap, you did your thing, and I kind of commend that. Like I applaud the performance because you will hear somebody that's like can really blow and do a great job doing the national anthem. So I'll clap for that. But and I also feel like the NBA by even issuing a statement is making it a bigger story than it needs to be. So that's the other thing too, which is what it is now. So
yeah, I don't care about this at all. Like, it's whatever to me. Get rid of qualified immunity.
Exactly, for sure.
Heard. Get rid of qualified immunity and actually have a use of force. Speaking of military, we actually had a use of force that was very clear when you use lethal force, when you use non-lethal force. So it was stages of aggression. Yeah, all the police officers need something like that.
It's weird how y'all have that for combat and war, but not for the police. They don't have something like that. It's just really bizarre to me. Or it's not as So I feel like people in the military follow it to a more strident way than police officers do, and that's probably because of you all going through boot camp and y'all going through your
there's no national conformity to how police operate too, because the police is local. So
right.
Department to department varies on how they do procedures.
Right.
That's okay. That's cool, but it has to be at least some type of national standards, in my opinion. It needs to be like clear cut, like, okay, what is abuse of force?
Mm-hmm.
Or, it should be some clear guidelines. I feel like some of these local departments have way too much freedom.
Right.
So, but that's just what it is. They have military weapons and stuff now too, just necessary.
Mm-hmm.
The last thing I want to talk about for the night. I don't know how you feel about Black History Month. I do Black History year round.
Right.
But shout out to Carter G. Woodson. Actually, when I first started to get into knowledge and enlighten myself, one of the first books I read was The Miseducation of the Negro.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to admit, because I keep it all the way 100. I don't really care. I didn't understand none of it when I first read it.
Of course.
I was reading it because I was like, I think I read it. How old was I? I think I was like maybe 21.
Mm-hmm.
And I was reading the words, but I would find myself reading 3 pages. And then I would stop. I was like, what did I just read? I didn't understand none of that. I wasn't ready. For those of you that actually read, y'all know sometimes you're not ready for a book. I wasn't ready for the book at the time, but I reread it like 3 years later, and it made a lot more sense to me. Because I had more knowledge. I was like, okay, this makes a lot more sense to me. So
it's like music. When you listen to like if you listen to like a rap like if you listen to a rap album that people say is seminal, and
right.
you aren't ready for it, it's gonna like go right over your head. But if you listen to it at the right moment, you have like more maturity and more years. It's like, oh yeah, this makes sense now. Or a movie, whatever piece of art, like it. You don't really appreciate stuff until you're in the right mindset for it. So it makes total sense that you would look at it years later and be like, all right, I get this now.
Yeah, and Carter G. The reason why I bring him up, he created.
Correct.
Well, first Black History Week, then expands
Mhm.
History Month. If people say it is the shortest month of the year, they say it had to do because his birthday was in February. I don't know, but for me, I don't need a month to recognize my history.
Mhm.
But I do appreciate during this time frame that people do start to think about Black history.
Mhm.
The only thing that I would criticize a little bit, a lot of it is cliche. You get the same stories, same people over and over and over. Black history is so vast, whether you're talking about Black American history, which is vast, there's so many Black Americans that did so much that gets underreported, whether you're talking about, you want to go to the continent, to what Black people have done throughout civilization in Africa, or whether you want to go to the Caribbean, whatever you want to do. There's so much to talk about. It just a lot of times you just get boiled down to, okay, Muhammad Ali,
Right.
the King, maybe Malcolm X, maybe that's not even guaranteed. That's not even guaranteed.
Remember when we were younger, he used to be O.J. Simpson? He was
What's
in my school, he was O.J. Simpson. O.J. Simpson was one of the figures. Before all this stuff happened with him, I remember in second second grade, yeah, I'm not joking. Second grade, in the early 90s or whatever, like a teacher would put up like in the hallways, they'd put up the Black History like little stickers and stuff.
what, the 2,000 yards in the season?
He was one of the people that they honored. Now Walter Payton, O.J. Simpson, not Jim Brown either. As you get older, you start realizing why these things are the way they are. But
Oh yeah, I got you. I get what you're saying. Okay. It went over my head at first. I got you.
Yeah.
I was just shocked at first. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it makes no sense. And if you are a younger person, me saying O.J. Simpson was one of those revered Black people doesn't make any sense to you, but he definitely was when we were younger.
I mean, he was a Buffalo Bill and a great running back, but
he was very running back for Buffalo Bills. Yep.
But yeah, they honored the Naked Gun or whatever that movie.
Gun, him running down Kuta Kinte and Roots, all that stuff.
Yeah, but that's crazy. But yeah, it goes to show you. It just a few people they center on. Maybe they talk about George Washington Carver and the peanut.
Yep.
But which is cool because he was a inventor.
Yeah.
They kind of like commercialized that too, like he was just a peanut fart. Like he was a great inventor as well.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so much more we can do with Black history in the way they teach, if they even teach it at all in schools, is despicable. Teach history in general, especially with some of these textbooks taking out the realities of slavery, taking out the criticisms of the founders. A book that I'll recommend for y'all, Lies My Teachers Told Me.
Oh yeah, that book, yeah.
Yeah. It's a great
by Howard Zinn, right? Am I bugging with that? What's his name? I forgot his name. But I have the book.
I think that was the United States of People Republic. That was a different one.
I'm looking it up now. Last one.
Yeah.
I can't remember the dude's name.
I think that's James
W. Lauren. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. But Lies My Teacher Told Me, that's a great that's a book. And what that does, this was like back in the 90s, I believe. About 10 textbooks. He reviewed it and basically just broke down all the stuff they left out and the way they tell history narratives as good guys versus bad guys. Of course, the Americans is always the hero, And history is a lot more complicated than that. Sometimes no good guys or bad guys. Sometimes it's gray areas and it's complex. Also, sometimes history could be like math. Like you look at history and you can make an estimate or a hypothesis or educated guess of what happens in the future too. I think about it like that as well. I don't know. What do you think about Black history in general, and also Black Future Month? Because that's what I'm titled this. What's some of the things that policy wise, and don't you have to be like political policy? It could be Black people in general. What we need to do to get in a better position.
Well, there's a couple of things that when I first saw this, I wanted to think about. I was watching something last week, and Cornel West was discussing MLK and some other stuff. It was on the Mighty Hassan show, and he was on there talking about just different things and Blackness, and he was talking about MLK and how it's not covered properly and so forth. And it had me thinking a little bit. I'm like, all right, yeah, first of all, I agree with everything you said. I think that it's important that we cover other figures in history that aren't just like typical standard bearers, and also give full context of them. So when you learn about MLK, you don't learn about anything that he said after 1964, for instance. Like that for some reason is completely wiped out the book. Like he was strongly anti-war, and had the speech where he rebuked the Vietnamese War, which lost him so many friends at the end of his life. Like a lot of people that was on the side were not on the side at the end of his life. And even in full context, you look at the movement that he was a part of.
The people movement or
the Civil Rights Movement.
Okay.
Well, the 4 Week movement was later on. I'm sorry, I apologize. That's later on. So 4 Weeks movement was like the end of his life. But the Civil Rights Movement in general, the story of that is always told as it's inevitable. That it was always going to happen. That just needed this irresistible leader, this charismatic leader to lead us. But the truth is, like, people were not rocking with him at the time. A lot of Black people weren't rocking with him at the time. Many Black people weren't rocking with him at the time, and you had even like many more like conservative is probably not the best way to put it, but more moderate Black leaders that were saying he's doing too much. So you have that as the history of what actually happened, and like you were saying, it's posited towards children now as like, oh, it was inevitable, irresistible, and he was always coming, and everybody like heard I Have a Dream and was like, yeah, we're going to do this, and that's just MLK. We never tell us the full story of MLK. So that's something that we need to definitely do more of as people. On top of that, excuse me, there's more aspirational stuff that you can teach as well about like many Black like I would cover like Black like kings and queens from Africa, just to show that these people you weren't just like this. It should always be a year round. I agree with that. And you should also cover stuff about like economics and the importance of that, like what that means for the Black community, along with the business side of it. But when I brought this to your attention, it made me also think about something else. And I think I want your thoughts on this. I think you might like put your eyes up, like, what are you talking about here? But what if we had like a month that also discussed whiteness, like a whiteness month? That might sound crazy to you. I don't know how you feel about that. You might take you back.
Elaborate what you mean.
There you go. I needed that. So what I'm getting at is we look at a lot of Black history is taught from the lens of struggle and overcoming and persevering against the forces, but we don't know what the forces are. It's never taught to us as what those forces were, and what the battle is always against is whiteness. Is always trying to compete, overcome whiteness, and I think that in our country, the way like whiteness is taught, it's not taught, and because of that, the context of that is always lost on people. So when you hear a white person say, "Well, I didn't own slaves, my family didn't own slaves," I don't really see why I have to think about these topics in that way. They're missing the whole power that comes with whiteness and what that means to be a white person in America, and all the privilege that you get, the fact that you're going to always like live a better life financially. You're always gonna live in an area that's like more environmentally secure. You're always gonna attend a better school. That's just like the power that you have as a white person. You're always gonna, if you apply for a loan and you're white, there's a better chance you're gonna get that versus other groups of people. And so my thinking was like, if you had like a month where you taught whiteness to kids every year, they would start becoming more ingrained in their minds of what happens to white skin, and that can eventually lead to policy changes that, my hope is always to overcome racism in this country eventually, where people are like, yeah, this is unfair, this is wrong, and yeah, white people that are starting to think like this more. That isn't just something that you learn in college, but it's something that you learn in the first grade. The value of whiteness, and the impact that your whiteness has on other people's, just by your presence, not because if you didn't do anything wrong, and it's not blaming you, but it's saying that this is a powerful tool that you should consider and try to figure out ways to make things more equitable and fair. And that also will give context to the other months as well. The other like cultural or historical months where, what is this? What do these things actually like mean, and how they all tie in together? It sounded weird, crazy, but to me, like I think it makes a lot of sense to try to like initiate something like that in our schools, because whiteness is just not a thing that's a subject that's ever taught to anybody, and it just, to me, it makes a lot of sense to start harping on whiteness more and teaching that more to people so they can understand what that actually means, what the power behind that actually is.
All right, I have a few things to say. First, I'm going to answer your question, but I'm going to rewind like Nas, and go back to King, right? Because there's a few things I want to mention. You're right. King is like two different people. The early part of his career, I say from about 59 to about 65.
Yeah.
He's he was one way. I say from 66 to 68, he was like a totally different person. Especially, I remember he gave the speech, right, where he was talking about, especially when he went up north, when he traveled to Chicago. It was a little bit different, and he was very honest about a few different things. He was talking about, if my homegirl Miss Baba was on here, me and her did a show about this years ago. He was like, the first half of his career, he was a lot more like Baron Jones is right now. Want to help, but will compromise way too much. And then the second half of his career, totally different. One of the things he said was, it was young brothers that was mad at him in Chicago, and he was upset that they was upset at him because of everything he has sacrificed, everything he has done. But then he said he understood where they was coming from after a while being in Chicago. And then, like, what's that famous quote he says? He feared that he led his people to
to burning house, something like that.
Yeah. So also King, he was a lot different. Have you read the book or The Radical King?
No, I haven't. Wow, we'll talk about it.
It is great. I recommend y'all go read it. Have some of his speeches. It expounds on a lot of stuff we talking about, and the things that they don't talk about King. It's called The Radical King. Also, another book y'all should pick up is this. This was one of the first books when I was getting into like really reading into politics, into Black knowledge. It was called American Dream or American Nightmare. I believe that was the title. And by James Combs, I believe. I haven't read this book since the 2000s, so if I got the information a little bit wrong, please forgive me. I believe it was American Dream or American Nightmare, by James Combs. It was an analysis of Malcolm and Martin Luther King. Basically, the whole thesis is by the time they both was assassinated, they was closer to each other's point of view. They almost in the middle. Malcolm was way more radical in the beginning, and I don't want to say he basically monarchized, but a little bit. He started to become, I guess, some people say more practical. I know ancient members would disagree with that, but he kind of moved closer to King's position, while still being outspoken and radical in himself. By the time King was assassinated in '68, he came more to Malcolm's position while still being himself as well. They both good reads. I recommend them if y'all can find them. So I just wanted to touch on King.
It's called Malcolm and Martin in America: A Dream or a Nightmare by James. By James, it's coming up now. James.
There we go. It was back in my mental Rolodex, and the reason why I've been forgetting, like, I bought a whole bunch of books, and I had to learn that when you let people borrow books, you just never get them back. Like, have so many books, be like, oh, let me borrow them. Like, all right, and then I'll be like, yeah, where's my book at? Where I just forget. Like, I swear, like half of my library is lost, and I don't know where it's at. That's why I do a lot of Audible now, because
You're right. It's digitally, always have a copy of it.
But anyway, check out those books. They're very, very good. Because King, as you said, is much more than I Have a Dream. Poorest people can't. You could just focus on the poor people campaign alone.
Yeah.
And his economic views and anti-war views alone. But that was one thing. But back to your point about whiteness, I agree with your sentiments and your overall substance of what you were saying. Substance, I agree with. I feel like we don't have a real conversation on the role of white people. Just for instance, indentured servitude. Why was it that poor whites sided with richer whites over black people? Was it they was always racist? Well, it's a little bit more complicated than that. There was actually rebellions, like in Virginia, with poor white people and black people and the slaves that they brought over, and they made it a law where a white person couldn't help out a black person anything. They also created, like, okay, these poor whites, we're not gonna get them too much, but as long as we get them a little bit more than these enslaved Africans, or even after we say give them a little bit more black people, okay, we can still keep them at bay.
Right.
In South Carolina, it was really interesting, right? Because big slave state, some of the poor white people that couldn't afford slaves really didn't like the slave owners, especially after slavery ended, because they still held all the power. But they was able to do some things where, okay, South Carolina actually did have, like, black representation in the Senate, stuff like that. They was able to do some things where, okay, they was able to give some of the poor white people in those areas some stuff, or promise them some stuff where they could get the black people out there. It's like, no alliance ever. And you see that to this day. Like, a lot of these poor white people have resentment to black people. Like, it's not us that puts you in these positions. I don't know why you with us. It's not us. It's not us that have you living in third world conditions. It's them. But, it's still bred. In a lot of these towns, there's no black people. Some never even saw a real black person in real life. They only saw us on TV. There's little areas like that, but they still so scared of us. I'm like, it's not us, but it is what it is. So I get the sentiment, but for me, I don't like months. Like I was just saying, History Month. I do Black History year round. For me, it's just more of a structure of, okay, how are we teaching history in general? Are we going to teach all the complexities and even the mistakes? Even the people I love, are we going to teach the mistakes of Martin Luther King? None of these people is perfect. Everybody made mistakes. Are we going to teach real, or are we going to keep sugarcoating everything? I kind of prefer that. I really don't like specific months. I just want a different structure of how we teach history in general. That's my opinion.
I feel you. I totally get that.
And actually implement it, these white people lose their mind. Like they lost their mind with the 1619 project. Yeah, they still talking about it. You know how many books these conservatives have written? Oh, the 1619 project is this and that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So
my hope was that if you make it a month, you can pull like the you can kind of like pull the like kind of put the cover over the head. It's like, oh, we're gonna have White History Month, yay! And then you start implementing like actual like whiteness, all that stuff, and it'd be too late for it to kind of like for them to reject it and all that stuff. But my hope was
every month is White History Month too here. So
yeah.
I know what you're saying. I know what you said. It'd be a different way of teaching it. I get the context of what you were saying.
But yeah, the bigger point though, and I agree with you, is that whiteness needs to be taught in schools to kids, like what the value of that is and what that means and how it impacts the lives of other groups. If I feel like if that was ever like a thing, like really implements in the curriculum of our schools across the country, you will start seeing stuff change like drastically, because you'll start seeing the harm that police causes. You even starting to see in the global context. You'll start seeing people say, well, like why is it that the global north countries are so prosperous while like the global south are the ones that bear the burden of everything, and why are the global south the ones that are punished all the time? You'll start seeing like I just think that people will start asking more questions, and you'll start seeing more policy changes in the long term if we started seeing and teaching like the wages of whiteness and what that and the value of that and how that's really like hurt so many others in this country and across the world. So yeah, it just when that conversation was happening and we are talking about Black History Month on that program, it just made me think like, yeah, we don't have a conversation about whiteness. And they didn't even bring it up. It just hit me like, we don't have a conversation about whiteness in this country, and whiteness is never discussed. And it's the most powerful thing that is in this country. It just is. Like it's not even deniable. Like if you said the most powerful thing in this country is whiteness, there's a currency behind it. People try to reach it and fail because they can't. 'Cause they're not white, and shoot, even white people don't get all the benefits of it. In so many instances, we're talking now about the poor whites that are living in what are like developing nation environments. It's just something that I would love for our educational discourse to have more of a conversation about, so that you understand that. It doesn't have to be a month. I don't care if it's a month. I just thought that a month was like a good way to pull it in there, but it has to be in our curriculums.
Nah, I feel you. Before we get out of here, I just want to leave the people with closing thoughts. Do you have any closing thoughts or any particular issues that you want to focus on that Black people need to do going forward, kind of like Black Future Month? Is there anything in particular that you think we need to focus on and really harp on?
Man, like I have been trying to get more into the like the abolition movements with regards to like policing and prisons and stuff, and especially after last summer. And I've read articles over years about it, but I just was kind of like, when you say abolish prison and abolish the police, it's a visceral reaction. Like, why the hell would I do that? But as I've started thinking more about it, it's not about something that happens overnight. It's something that will that you work towards. You try to work towards a society that doesn't need the police, that doesn't need prisons. And I want us as a people, and us as human beings, if you're white listening to this as well, or Asian or whatever, I want us to start thinking about a world where we don't need that stuff. We don't need the prison. We don't need a police force, and start thinking about ways to actually like achieve that. And I've like started like getting into that a little bit more and thinking about that a lot more. And I think that it's something that if you start answering that question, and start thinking about how that can come about, you'll start realizing like, okay, we can change how we educate people. We can change how we house people. We can change how we provide healthcare for people. We start changing so many structures in our society that things will change. We'll start thinking about whiteness different, like I was talking earlier. Things will change so dramatically if we start asking that question of how do we get a society where we don't need prison and we don't need police. So I just hope that people start reading about that and start challenging themselves a little bit more on what that means, so we can hopefully achieve that one of these days.
No doubt, and thanks for joining me as well.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that. Thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. You know, all praises to the pod god.
For the pod guy, for sure.
No, I'm sorry. Let me not offend people. You know, people get offended. You say stuff like that. I'm joking. Relax. But anyway, there's a few things for me. I think in the future, and I was saying this on IG. By the way, follow Say What I Mean on IG. I'm kind of old school. Like I was very slow when it comes to social media. I was one of those people. I was like, what? Get out of here. Like I was slow with text messages when it first came out. I was like, what? Like, why? Just call me. What is this? But anyway, follow me, Say What I Mean on IG. I do post videos there as well, just short, to the point stuff, and it's just thoughts. Once again, Say What I Mean on IG. And I was saying on there that politics is just one tool to use.
Mm-hmm.
And the main point of this channel, besides talking battle rap, but the main point of this channel is putting in context politics, right? And I keep seeing more and more people, and especially younger Black people, disassociate with politics. And I'm not waving my finger at y'all. I'm not saying you must vote or anything like that. At the end of the day, we all adults. You over 18, you have the right to do what you want to do. You have a right to disagree with me, and I'm not pointing my fingers at you or saying you're the problem or anything like that. But just in my opinion, that you are doing yourself a disservice in the long run, because it is a tool, if nothing else, a tool that can be used against you. So you want to pay attention and know what's coming, at least. Also, with knowing what's coming, if you can help manipulate it any way, we should do so. And the reason why I say that, people are so into business, and I'm in business too, because I think politics and business go hand in hand. And those two of the structures that we have to work on going forward. Black businesses face a variety of problems, and a lot of it is due to politics. And people don't think about it like that. Politics and business go hand in hand. Who donate money to politicians is really big business people that have a lot of money, or they form PACs where corporation donates unseen money to politicians so they can make the rules. And also more in local areas too, who set the rules for businesses, just little small stuff. Example I used, and I noticed because I actually had a storefront just for about a year or whatever, was a good experience. If you're trying to open up a business in a certain area, a township can tell you no, because there's too many of those same type of businesses in the area. So, like, let's just say you want to open, I don't know, a small cafe, right? If they have a pizza shop or fish market or something like that, a town board, depending on their rules, they could say, "Oh, there's too many of those type of businesses." Even though your business is not exactly like those, they could say, "Well, we don't want too many of those type of businesses in the same area," and deny you permission to open there. Literally, stuff like this happen. That's politics. That is politics. So what do? You got to go to those local township meetings. You're going to have to meet with those politicians. That's politics. And you want to have somebody that's more friendlier to your cause in those. And we don't think about it like that. It's just like a lot of us think, get our money up and just open our business and that's it. yes, for some people that will work, but for a lot of us, it's more complicated. A lot of these white businesses itself, because the rules is manipulated in their favor as well.
Hmm.
If anything, with the game stock, with the game stop, Robinhood AMC situation should show you politics have a lot to do with it. You know, you had people, smaller individuals, game the system, and Robinhood was just able to stop it with no consequence. Yes, they talking about doing hearings, but there's nothing in the rules that said Robinhood couldn't do that. Why? Most politicians' biggest donations come from Wall Street. You know, so it goes hand in hand. And also, if you want to get ahead, even if you don't believe how you could change it in politics, it's like you want to be in business. It's like, okay, I need the most information. Having a gauge of what's coming politically can help you set up to make the changes in the business you need. Because if you know if a Republican coming into office, they're gonna cut regulations, you might want to look at a few things. Like if you're in the stocks or something like that, right? If you're in the investment. The Obama administration denied some mergers. You knew when Trump was getting in, those mergers probably was going to go through. It just like, it's kind of having all the knowledge. And I feel like not being involved in politics, not having the, and not trying to get people at least a little bit more sympathetic to our causes in is a detriment. So that's number one. And like I said, I don't think it's the end all to be all. Number two, beyond politics, we have to start mentoring. I think that's a big key. Just taking our personal time and getting into mentoring the youth. And that's beyond from when they're in high school, from a younger age. Mentoring them, just like, okay, let them know what type of industry you in. So if you don't like your job, let's just say you have a job like claims, you don't like it. Explain to them what is claims, what you don't like about it, why you was in it, what type of money it is in it, so they have just a overall view of what to do growing up. Like if you into baking, or if you have your own business, or if you have any type of job, any type of professional job, or just a job period, start explaining to them what it is you do and how do you get to the top of your industry. You have that knowledge. That's the type of mentorship I'm talking about. Whether you join an organization, whether you start your own organization, like that's something we have to do, is just get a better focus on the youth, and just reaching back out to them and just show them stuff. So for me, that's the concentration. Politics and business, because those are the keys, especially getting Black businesses the capital they need to actually be competitive. Because Black businesses a lot of times run a disadvantage because a lot of times we have to start with low capital, and you can't get the inventory you want. Therefore, you can't buy in bulk. Therefore, price is a little bit higher. It's a lot of stuff. You might not be able to get the loans from your bank where you can actually live off the loan for a few years before your business make a profit. A lot of us still have to work a 9 to 5 and try to do the business, which is very difficult. So business, politics, learning how to intertwine and working to our favor, and also giving back to the youth and actually mentoring. That's me. That's my little spill for the day. That's all I got.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to say, man, this is really a great conversation. Those are some great points you brought up, particularly around mentorship.
Yep.
And learning and the importance of like learning politics. So I took those in myself, so I appreciate that.
No.
But yeah, man, thanks for having me on here. It's a great conversation. I learned a lot. I hope you did for me as well. But yeah, this is a dope conversation, and hope we can do it again in the future.
Oh, definitely. My man, he will be back. And we at this every week. Say what I mean. Once it might be a little bit of interruption, just because I do have a kid coming. But don't worry, I got some backlog videos. I'm gonna be in the hospital upload those. my daughter gonna see me grinding from out the womb, you know.
Word.
But all right, y'all. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, share the video. Definitely trying to go channel. Thanks and peace.